Namaste. Hello, I'm Sonali Gokte and I'm reading from my mystery novel, The Ripple Effect. I'm reading chapter 4 in two parts. This is part 2 of chapter 4. Neil and Ishani, the two detectives, have come to the campsite with Inspector Moray and they are talking to Jivaji, who is from Wild Outdoors campsite. Neil asked, "Did you get a chance to see who was drinking? Was Manjiri drinking?" "Sir, there were three ladies, but Manjari madam was the only one drinking. Amongst the men, most of them were drinking." "All of them were drinking?" Ishani couldn't help asking. "Most of were drinking, madam. Some two, three people were not drinking. Dheeraj sir was drinking, but Atul sir was not drinking. He was only drinking water or thumbs up." Jivaji kept mentioning Atul and Dheeraj. Looked like he knew only the two of them well. Neil turned to Inspector Moray and said, "When you came here the first time, did you ask people about alcohol?" Inspector Moray looked a little sheepish and said, "Jivaji and his men did say once or twice that people had been drinking. So we inquired, but when everyone we spoke to at QSoft said that they had not been drinking, we went with that. We went through the tents to look for anything that might be relevant. We didn't find any bottles anywhere. We found two, three empty beer bottles, but they were in the lake. Only later on, when the post-mortem report came, did it become clear that alcohol was definitely involved." Neil nodded to acknowledge this and then turned to Jivaji. "Where did all the bottles go?" "Sir, one sir had a car. He had driven out at night and came back early in the morning. He took away all the bottles. We had told the police." Inspector Moray looked down at that. Ishani didn't blame him. The police had done what they were asked to do. Neil went back to Jivaji and said, "Tell us what happened after the drinking session." Jivaji continued. "They came into the dining hall for dining at around 9:15 p.m. Many people ate very little, but the dinner went on for a long time. After dinner, Manjari madam said something to Atul sir and then went out. We saw her walk down to the lake. Some people went to the recreation center. Atul sir waited in the dining hall. Then he made a phone call, which went on for a long time. We were waiting here for him to finish. From here, I watched another sir go down to the lake. In a few minutes, we saw him come up and go towards the recreation center." "Who was it?" Neil asked. "I don't know, sir. From here, I couldn't recognize him," Jivaji said. He looked at Neil almost apologetically. Ishani made a note about this and Jivaji continued his story. "As soon as Atul sir finished the call, we locked up the dining hall. We wanted to go and sleep. We had to start early the next morning as QSoft folks had asked for breakfast from 6:30 a.m. and tea even before that." Inspector Moray said, "They have tents for the staff behind the kitchen." Neil asked, "How do we go there?" Jivaji said, "You can go this way, sir, through the kitchen. This is a shortcut. Otherwise, from outside also we can go." They all walked out through the back door of the kitchen to see four staff tents set up in a row. At the other end, there were toilet and shower tents. From here, you could see the conference hall and you could also see the recreation center in the distance. I didn't notice these tents in the model, Ishani mused. Jivaji smiled and said, Madam is correct. Staff tents were set up much later after the model was made. Much later after the model was made. How many people from the wild outdoors were here that night, Jivaji? Neil asked. 6 of us. There were the cooks, the people who take care of all the different activities we offer, like river crossing, canoeing, and then general service staff. What about security staff? There are 4 guards who stay here. 2 work the day shift and 2 the night shift. All of them were here. Where do they stay? They stay in the tent, sir. If there are more staff people, we set up one more tent. They made their way back, but from the outside, around the building. Instead of entering the dining hall, Neil walked towards the lake and others followed him. Till you got to the point from where you start climbing down, you didn't see the lake shore itself. From there, it was a gradual and easy climb down. Once you got to the lake shore, you could only see the dining hall and the 2 tents that were right next to the path coming down to the lake. So, only someone standing at the French windows of the dining hall or on the deck or right by the 2 tents would have been able to see what happened down here. They walked the length of the shore till the sharp uphill turn. It looked to be about 60 to 70 degrees incline, impossible to climb up. The canoes were all turned upside down on one side of the shore. There were also 3 rowboats, one of which was turned upside down. Last month, when QSoft people came, water was up till here. Jivaji pointed to a rock on the shore. It was about 8 feet away from the present water line and about 1.5 feet higher. We found the SIM card somewhere here, he said, indicating 4 feet outside the current water line. Inspector Moray said the incline is gradual for about 30 feet. That's what I think. Then it's a sudden dip. If we assume that Manjari went into the water and drowned on reaching the sudden dip, she should be somewhere within the range of about 40 to 45 feet inside the water line at that time, Neil said. Yes, I think someone must have taken her, either in a boat or maybe swimming, Inspector Moray said. Is it possible that she could swim a little? So she did swim out and then got a cramp or felt really ill in some way and could not continue to swim. She could not return, and even if she tried calling for help, no one could hear her and she drowned. Ishani asked. 250 feet? Neil asked incredulously. Remembering that Jivaji had talked about the river crossing, Ishani asked him, excuse me, that evening, were you present when they did the river crossing exercise? Yes, madam. Some people get scared while they do it for the first time, right? Yes, a lot of people get scared, but many will tell that they are not scared or it is not a big deal. Only some people say they are scared. Did all the QSoft people participate in the exercise? And were there any who were scared? All of them did it. Some said they were scared. What about Manjiri? Madam, mostly women would be more scared. Sangeeta madam and that third madam both were scared, but not Manjiri madam. She was not scared at all. Ishani wondered if Manjiri had a lack of fear bordering on recklessness, which could have proven to be very dangerous. She had done it earlier. Many times, she said. She was not scared. She knew how to wear the harness, and she knew how the carabiners worked. We found out that she used to go for a lot of adventure activities like mountaineering, river rafting, even bungee jumping. Inspector Moray pitched in. When they walked back to the dining hall, Ishani noticed that a table for four was set up by the French windows under a fan. Jivaji urged them, "Sir, madam, we would like you to have lunch. We make simple but very good food." Inspector Moray was the first one to speak. "I bring my own lunch, so I'll head back." "Neil, sir, Ishani, ma'am, you please go ahead." Ishani was in two minds about it, but she was really hungry. She looked at Neil. He too seemed to be in two minds. "Okay, we will have lunch, but we will pay for it," Neil said. "No, no, we want you to have lunch as guests, sir. We are not going to charge you," Jivaji replied. But Neil was firm about it. He said, "Jivaji, Ishani and I will be able to have lunch with you only if you charge us for it. We will need the bill and we will be getting the company to pay for it. Like the inspector, we too are working. We can't eat here as your guests." Ishani was glad when Jivaji agreed and asked the person hovering in the background to serve lunch. It was nice to sit by the French windows and savor the simple food. They also kept the conversation away from the case. Jivaji entertained them by telling them about a film shooting that had recently taken place in the vicinity. After the meal, they talked to the security guards and around 4 p.m. made their way back to the city. Neil drove quietly and Ishani decided to call Gitika. She put the call through and smiled listening to the caller tune, "Dil chahta hai, kabhi na beete." Finally, Gitika picked up just as Ishani was about to hang up. "Hi Shani, how are you? Back in Mumbai or what?" Gitika was her exuberant self. "Hi Gitu, I am in Pune actually." At first, Gitika insisted that Ishani stay with her. But when Ishani explained that she was working on a case, she settled for meeting her as soon as possible. They agreed to meet on Thursday evening and talked a little more before ending the call. "An old friend?" Neil asked when the call got over. "Yes, a very old friend. We studied together. She is like the sister I never had," Ishani said with a smile. "She works at a pathology lab here. We plan to meet on Thursday evening. I know you warned me that our evenings could be busy and not to make other plans, but I would really like to meet her." Neil looked at her and smiled. "That's fine. Call her over to the hotel. You can sit and chat away from her hubby and son." He had used the same words that she had in her phone conversation. "They are going out of town. Hubby and son, that is. We'll see." They both got quiet for some time, and as they reached the city limits, the traffic had thickened to the point that Neil was constantly driving in second gear. Ishani was glad that she was not the one driving. Then, remembering her earlier surprise, Ishani asked, "I never knew you spoke Marathi." Neil shrugged and said, "I know a lot of languages. I have been speaking Marathi, Bengali, Gujarati, and Punjabi since childhood. Then, looking at her expression, he smiled and said, my grandparents came from four different states. My mother's father was a Punjabi Sikh. Her mother is a Maharashtrian. My father's father was Rajasthani but from Bengal, and his mother Gujarati. And all of them spoke to us in their own languages. So my sister and I picked up all these languages. I studied languages for my graduation before going into law. Wow, Ishani didn't know what else to say.